Welcome to Soul Conversations with Z, Healing in the Raw, where we keep it raw, real, and unfiltered. I'm Zachyra Rodriguez, a trauma specialist and marriage psychotherapist, and this is a space where we dive deep into the messy, yet beautiful and often difficult parts of life. Here we challenge ourselves to face our fears and dig deeper into self-discovery. I'm no newbie. I've navigated many rocky roads and consider myself a recovered traumaholic. Life hasn't been easy, but I truly believe that everything happens for a cause greater than ourselves. Whether you're navigating with grief or grappling with trauma, healing from attachment injuries, or working on your marriage, we're here to unpack it all. No sugarcoating, just honest conversations about the struggles we face and the growth that comes from them. You matter, you are loved, even before your existence, and you're created to do great things. So grab a seat, my friend, take a long, deep breath, and let's get real together. So let's begin.
All right, welcome to Soul Conversations with Z, Healing in the Raw. It is my honor to have my sobrino on with me. Not really my sobrino, but I call him that. We've kind of adopted him as my sobrino. So it's definitely a pleasure. You're actually the first guest of 2026. I'm excited to have you. Yeah, so Bejota, you're going to hear me interchanging his name from Bejota to BJ. So tell us a little bit about who you are so the audience can get to know you, and then we can begin.
Sure. Well, the pleasure is mine as well. I am so honored to be able to be here, just to be able to, share this moment with you and to, share information with our guests, to enlighten our guests, to bring conversations forward that are designed to help people grow, to provide perspective, insight, and bless people so they can live for a better tomorrow. So I'm really excited, and I'm really happy that I get a chance to be your first guest of the new year, which is really cool. Man, information about myself. Well, I love Jesus. It's good to be alive.
Yes.
Born and raised in South Jersey. And I love traveling. I love spending time with people.
We love traveling. How many countries have you been to already?
I have now been to, I'm going to say I'm between 16 and 18 countries right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah. And I'm still trying to get to more. I try to, if I can, time permitting, obviously, and financially permitting, I try to get to at least one new country a year.
Wow.
So I've done pretty good 2023, 2024, 2025.
Okay.
2026, we'll see.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons why I brought you on, because I know that we've had these conversations, pretty much in our living rooms, and we're talking about modern day Ruth today, what that looks like, right? And waiting well and loving wisely. And one of the things that I've noticed, especially with, young men, nowadays is like, for some reason, it's not like back in the days that, like I got married in my really, really early 20s. And, nowadays it's more of, there's a lot of challenges, I think, with, people pretty much like within their 20s and 30s. So I thought about, bringing on a few young men that can really, adult men that can really talk about how life is like dating in today's world.
Right.
So as we're going to, dive in and talk about like these conversations and things, like, what do you think about dating, today, just in general?
That's a very broad question. Well, first, let me first start out by just saying, some people know you as Zachyra.
Yes.
Some people know you as Mom. Yes. Some people know you as Amor, Negra. I know you as Tia.
Yes,
so I just want to say, if y'all hear me saying Tia, if you guys hear me saying...
Thanks for the disclaimer.
Yes. Just for my people that don't speak Spanish, Tia is aunt. So that's what I call her. She called me sobrino. So I just want to make sure we're all on the same page.
Yes. And why don't we just tell the audience also a little bit about our relationship so they could have a little bit of an understanding?
Sure. Yeah. No problem. So, I mean, my relationship and how I got to know Zachyra, how I got to know Tia and the Rodriguez family actually came, I would say it's a combination between my sister and her eldest son, Anthony, who Anthony and my sister really got to be good friends through, I think, just doing praise and worship together, through church.
Absolutely.
Other activities through the, just the other activities through the church.
Yeah.
So with that, I found my way into the picture somewhere. Somehow, I'm not sure.
We adopted him somewhere, somehow.
Exactly.
I don't even know when the Tia began.
I have no idea either. It's been so long.
And then after that, it's just been like you've been a sobrino.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. And like from there, the relationship just kind of took off, So although Anthony's no longer with us, my relationship with the family has continued. And I'm grateful for that, And it really is the family. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like I tell people all the time, like, oh, you know, Zachyra and her husband, Tony. Yeah. But I was like, you know what? It really is the family.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
you know, and that's the way I feel.
Yeah. And we love you.
Which is cool. And I love you guys too.
Yes.
Yeah.
So let's dive in and
Sure.
you know, let's talk a little bit about like, what do you think is like are some of the challenges that, you know, people face nowadays?
Well, let's talk about in the last 5 to 6 years. You know, we have a lot more things that are remote.
Yeah.
So, for instance, my job is remote. I've been pretty much remote since, you know, COVID-19 and the whole pandemic and things of that nature. So a lot more time at home. So with that being said, trying to just find time just to be around people, you know, before we even get the relationships, just trying to find times to be in circles where you can be around other folks is challenging. That's one thing I would mention. Some other things, I think finding people who are people who are like-minded, you know, finding people who value the same things you value.
Absolutely.
You know, I tell people all the time, I think one of my struggles as it comes to relationships has always been finding people who understand me spiritually, but also socially.
Yeah.
You know, I think.
So talk on that a little bit as far as like the socially and the spiritually.
Yeah.
Because you did say, you know, you love Jesus.
I do.
So
I do love Jesus.
We all love Jesus.
That's my boy. That's my boy. So.
Yes.
Yeah. So, born and raised in a Christian home. You know, both my mom and dad were actually raised Catholic.
Okay.
And then somewhere along the line as I was growing up, mom got introduced to like the non-denominational faith. And then from there, we had just converted to just more Christianity. Now, the church we go to, it is an Assemblies of God church. You know, so that's the belief system there. But, you know, like I said, just basic Christianity. So that's what I've been raised in. You know, nobody's perfect. Obviously, I'd say the same thing. It's the same goodness of God that will get me into heaven like everybody else, you know. So let's not, you know, let's not get it twisted. I'll put it to you that way. But so I mean that's my faith background. So my faith is important to me. You know, it is a core part of the person I am, you know, and I would say even more so within the last I would say pretty much since I've come out of college. So I graduated with my bachelor's about, I'm dating myself, almost 10 years ago.
You are, but you're putting it out there because I didn't ask.
I know, it's okay. It's okay. So, so almost 10 years ago, I would say pretty much from that point on, my faith really has taken off and really, you know, reached some new heights. So with that being said, it's become very intertwined with the person that I am today, you know, and I would say some people don't even know that, you know, and they don't know it just because I don't really deem myself, I wouldn't really say I'm a person who tries to put their faith, you know, out there. But at the same time, I'm not going to do something that's out of line or, you know, that doesn't line up with my values, my morals. Yeah. And if you ask me, I'll tell you. You know, I have friends that if you want to refer to, some people say are secular. And I mean, with them, like they some of them know that I am a Christian. Some of them ask, some of them don't ask questions, you know, and I answer them appropriately, you know, but I'm not going to change who I am, you know, to be something less or be something that's not what they would expect. But just to kind of navigate back to your question, it's definitely been a challenge of trying to find somebody, like I said, who gets me spiritually, you know, and I'm not looking for somebody who can quote and read me the whole entire Bible from start to finish, because that wouldn't work for me, because that's not who I am. You know what I'm saying?
So if you found someone that is pretty much like every single day, Jesus in the morning, Jesus in the afternoon, and they're constantly talking about, you know, like the Bible and the Word of God, that would not go well with you.
No.
Okay.
No, just because I think everything's got to be in proportion.
Okay.
You know, but
there has to be kind of like a balance.
Exactly right. So what I would say is I'm going to use the Bible to make my point, though. So the Bible teaches about that we as people were divided into three beings, right? So there's the flesh. Yes. There's the soul and there's the spirit. So on the spiritual level, that's where Jesus enters into when we receive our salvation through him. Yes, that's a portion of who we are. Okay. But again, there's still a soul, and then there's still a flesh. Right. You know, so I think there's got to be a balance in all three of those areas with that relationship for me, like I said, with that specific person. Yeah.
Okay. And then talk a little bit about the social side.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, socially, like I said, I like people, you know, so I like to go out. I like to, you know, engage people. Like one of the things I tell people that's the hardest for me is like when I travel, it's always like, even right now, I just recently came back from Colombia. Yeah. The first week for me is always rough. Okay. Why? Because anytime I travel, especially like in the way that I have, where it's like, you know, 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks at a time, what happens during those 2 to 3 weeks, I'm around people. There's plans this day, plans that day, plans the other, and it's here to go here and be with this person this day. And tomorrow we're going here.
It's very draining.
There's so much movement. Yeah. Well, it's a little bit draining, but I mean, in some ways, it kind of speaks a little bit kind of to who I am because, like I said, I liked like the people time. You know what I'm trying to say?
Okay.
So, and especially like with where I am now, like I said, working from home, having a remote job, I do spend a lot more time at home during the week. During the week, minimally. The weekend, I'm very on top of myself to make sure I get out, get around people, do something, socially, more so on the weekends. But when I first come back, and like I said, I returned to that being at home lifestyle. Like that first week, I feel very, I don't even have the word to put to you for it. It's very, I guess it's just difficult because it's that drastic switch from being with people to now just being in home again.
Right.
So, yeah.
It's interesting because we were in Europe back in August and we spent like about, I want to say like 2 weeks out there. And it was funny because my sister made a comment like that. She said something about that people, when you do travel and you go back, they call it like vacation depression that you go through.
Yeah.
Because you have to go back to like the same routine.
Right.
But what you're talking about, it sounds like all that stimulus and then all of a sudden it's like, okay,
Literally.
you don't have that. So that was all pulled away from you.
Yeah.
So now you have to like readapt.
Exactly.
Again.
Yeah, exactly. And it's always the first week. Like normally after about 5-6 days, I'm good. I'm back to my normal routine.
Yeah.
But like I said, those first couple of days of like just not hearing so-and-so, like especially like when I'm in Colombia, I normally stay with a friend of mine.
Right.
Having like hearing the door opening up, knowing he's coming in, we're talking about how his day went. I'm telling him how my day went. You know what I'm saying? Every once in a while, he may have somebody come over, we'll do dinner with somebody, or, you know what I'm saying? So like
you're
that
always
activity.
in the company of someone and doing something.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And then you have to like readjust all of a sudden,
Exactly.
especially coming back to this cold, especially if you were in Colombia.
Yeah, exactly.
With
so,
these snowstorms, that's
not
helping.
There was no North Face jacket, no bufanda, no, what do you call it, gloves, none of that.
Just shorts and chancletas.
Exactly. That's it. Every day.
Okay.
Yes.
So I guess being, secluded, that you're not even around people sometimes, that could be really difficult too. Like to pretty much like date.
Yes.
Yeah. So as we continue to kind of like to navigate and try to figure out, what does, I guess dating well or like loving wisely like look like for you?
Well, I would say it starts with, I would say before anybody can go into a relationship, and I think we use these terms loosely, but I'm going to try to see if I can, put some definitions around it.
Yeah.
I would say we have to first learn how to love ourselves well. Like I think sometimes people say like, man, I want to make sure I'm good mentally where I need to be before I go into a relationship. But okay, let's talk about like, what does that mean? How do you make sure you're mentally good? Well, I would somewhat relate it back to what I mentioned initially. Understanding that there's a flesh, there's a soul, and there's a spirit. So you want to be making sure that you are caring for yourself on all three levels. Physically, don't make it difficult. Eating well, exercising, taking care of yourself, making sure you are spending enough time around people. Being updated on just current events in life, different things that are going on in the world, economically speaking. Being able to hold a job. Not just get one, but are you employable? Can you maintain work?
So I'm going to interrupt you right now.
Ahead.
So let's just say, if you find someone that socially they're doing well, spiritually they're doing well, but they can't keep a job, and they're, they have like these areas in their life that they're just not up to par, that they cannot love well. Do you think that also would be a challenge for you?
I would want to investigate why. Let's get to the why behind it, because sometimes certain things are just surface level,
right?
And sometimes the problem that we see on the surface level may not actually be the problem. It could be something else that leads to it. You know what I mean? Okay. So I think let's understand why. And then once we figure out what it is, then I think from there, it's understanding, okay, now what's the perspective of that individual about that problem?
Right.
Now, are you in a position where you're like, this is a problem in my life, it needs to be fixed, and I'm willing to do anything I need to do, work with somebody, get the necessary assistance so I can be better here in this area? So I can work with that. Right. Because I tell people all the time, it was Jesus who was perfect, right? So if they say Jesus was perfect, God sent a savior down here because what? He knew we weren't perfect, right?
Right.
So let's not go into a relationship with the idea, think I'm going to meet Miss Perfect. It doesn't work. Or Mr. Perfect if you're if you're a female looking for a guy. So I mean, I say that to say is we all have things we got to work. I have things I need to work on.
We all do.
So, I think, and that really is where the beauty of like when you talk about relationships and marriages, that's really where it comes from. Why? Because you have these two individuals that are saying yes to one another, that have some areas where they shine and have some areas where they don't shine. And they're becoming one. You know what I'm saying? So what does that mean? Those areas where maybe you don't necessarily shine, but your partner does, all of a sudden you now shine in those areas.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And vice versa. Like, you guys complement one another. So, I wouldn't say I'm necessarily looking for perfection, but Yeah, I think that there's got to be, in terms of like loving well, before you can go into a relationship and truly love somebody at the capacity that it needs to be, I think you have to learn how to, love yourself well, and there's different levels of that spiritually and also, I would say, physically or, naturally, and, apart from God, apart from the things of the faith.
And I think what you're talking about is pretty much like what we also talk about like in therapy, as far as like it's something called like the wellness wheel, right? And it's divided into like 8 different components.
Okay.
And you kind of already touched on some of them, like the occupational part, also pretty much like intellectual, like, because you could find someone that spiritually they're doing well, also maybe like socially they're doing well, but then let's just say they have some challenges in other areas, right? Intellectually, they may not be all well up there, right? Or they may not even provide any type of like stimulus for you, like when you guys are talking and, being able to talk about, all these different topics, right? So then you also have like the physical part, also your environment, all these different areas. And I do agree, like for you to be able to love well, you have to be able to love yourself well first.
Right, exactly.
Because I think that sometimes we're going out there waiting for people to love us well, but we can't even love ourselves well. And then we want them to become Mr. Hero.
Right, exactly.
And do all the work for us. But that's one of the second commandments that Jesus spoke about, right?
Right.
Like you have to love God first.
Right.
But then it also talks about, loving your neighbor and then like yourself.
Right.
Yeah. But we want to love our neighbor.
Right.
But we don't even know how to love ourselves.
Yeah.
Because we always forget about that second part of that scripture.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. Even as you say that, there's I can't tell you what verse, but I know in the book of Ephesians chapter 5, that's one of the chapters that talks a lot about like just conduct and in terms of like husband and wife and marriage. And one of the things that it says that a man never nourish himself and feedeth himself because he hates himself. So what is it trying to say? You feed yourself. We consume. We give the flesh what it wants. Why? Out of a place of love.
Yeah.
And one of the things it goes into saying is that the man has to learn how to love. Yeah. The way that Christ loved the church is the way that man is supposed to love his wife.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I don't want to start a battle between relationships here, but I would say to that, yes. Men, we have to love women the way Christ loved the church. Yeah. But at the same time, we have a responsibility to give women something to love. We have a responsibility, right?
Okay, so I need you to dig a little bit more deeper into that.
Well,
you started it.
I did. I think men, we have a responsibility to, you have to give women something to follow. You have to give women something to be committed to. So there's portions of the Bible where it talks about, the woman, being in submission to the husband, but you can't ask a woman to submit to a husband who is maybe financially irresponsible, who doesn't live in such a way where he, is considering her. Above himself, who's not thinking about us, who's constantly thinking about I. So I think, men, we have to also, you have to assess and make sure that the way that you live, the way that you do your life in all different aspects, as we were talking about before, is a way, and it's of something that is conducive to a healthy relationship, conducive for a healthy family. The specifics of that, it's going to look a little bit different per person depending on the marriage.
Absolutely.
But, I think we have to give somebody something to appreciate. I'll give you another verse, 1 Corinthians chapter 13, where it talks about love. It says that love considers the other person before themselves. So again, when you talk about, somebody being in a relationship and, having a family or having a marriage, you have to be thinking about us. You have to be thinking about we.
Not just
you have to be thinking about our.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, and there's benefits to that as well too. I think there's a lot of issues in life that people avoid when you're in a committed relationship or when you're in, whether it's your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your husband, your wife. There's so many things that we avoid, again, because you just mentally, you can't go to some of those places because it's detrimental to us and our dynamic. So.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, thank you. All right, Fernanda. So when we think about, like the waiting well, right?
Okay.
Because, like we could love wisely, and we talked about, pretty much like loving someone as far as like, but being healthy in this process, because I think a lot of relationships, they start, but people are not healthy. People are showing up and they're a hot mess.
True.
And then it's very difficult for the other person, to kind of be able to love them because they're not even well themselves, right?
Right.
So when we talk about like the waiting process, like how can one person like be waiting and like waiting well? Like what comes to you when you think about that?
Sure. Waiting well. I mean, I think it is all right. So, I mean, I'll talk about myself. What are some things that I would define that I would consider as waiting well?
Yeah.
I would say taking care of myself from a mental aspect, being just mindful of the way that the things that I think about, being mindful of the things that I, am watching or listening to, understanding that, hey, yeah, right now in this season of my life, I may be single, but, if you were in a marriage, are you thinking of things that are going to be conducive to a healthy marriage, to a healthy relationship, to, a healthy family dynamic? And that can be challenging because, right now in this moment, I don't have anybody. So I really can think about whatever I want.
Right.
I could, but I think in some ways, when you talk about waiting well, I feel like, there we go. Waiting well, I would say, is living life now as if you are already in a relationship. Why? Because you can't wait till that person comes to essentially think you're going to turn all this stuff on and be this wonderful, great partner that you haven't practiced and you haven't, these aren't things that you've been doing all along. So that way, when that relationship comes, it's not going to just magically happen.
Yeah.
These are things that have to be done. I'll give you an example, a little bit different, but just to kind of give us, some context. LeBron James, Michael Jordan, Stephen Curry, Tom Brady, these are all athletes that we recognize because these are people who won in their respective sports. None of them waited the day before the championship game, the Super Bowl, to be great. No, there were years and decades of practice and preparation, to help them be able to achieve and be these recognizable figures that we know them to be. And I think in some ways our relationships are the same way. We can't wait to the moment to try to turn these things on.
Right.
That it's a process.
And that's why it becomes a challenge.
Yes.
Because I believe that many men, right, when they're trying to court these females, they put on like a show.
Yeah.
It's a performance.
I agree.
Right? So we're performing, we want to get the girl, we buy them the flowers, we take them to the best restaurants and everything else. And then afterwards, it's like, okay, I already got, pretty much like the cow in the house, so I don't need to do anything else.
Right. And it doesn't work.
Yes.
Like that.
So the waiting well, it sounds like what you're saying is that it's more about being able to be that husband, even though you're not in that relationship today.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It starts now because it's not going to just magically happen at the last minute,
And I think that's so important, even for like females, right? So if you are out there and you're listening to this, I think that's so important what you just said because, we get into these, I would say like these so-called relationships and we're performing, but then we want to know like, well, what happened? Right. So even with females, like we're not waiting. Well, I mean, I'm married. I've been married already. Next week will be like 33 years. But I can't believe it. But even with that, it's like, if a female is like doing this whole performance, gig, and then all of a sudden it's like the guy is like, wait a minute, that's not what you sold me.
Right.
And that's why we have a lot of relationship conflicts because people come into these relationships that they don't know what it even means to be waiting well.
Right, exactly.
So while you're waiting, it sounds like you're saying like you have to be able to, number one, get healthy first.
Yeah, I agree.
Before you're trying to pretty much go out there and marry someone and you're not even healthy.
Yeah, exactly. And I think also be who you really are.
Yeah.
In every aspect of it. Don't try to hide or, cover things up from this person. And don't get me wrong. I understand you're not going to go and, spill out all your dirty laundry on day one. I get that. But,
they'll run away.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But as much as you can, be authentic about this person. Hey, here are my needs. Hey, here are some things I'd like to do.
Right.
These are some things that are important to me.
Yeah.
These are some things this is the way I view my life when I get to retirement.
Yeah.
These are how many kids I want to have.
Yes.
I don't want kids at all.
That's so important.
Be open about some of these things that that you truly desire. Don't hide yourself.
Yeah.
Because again, I had a girl tell me once this is when I used to live in Connecticut. And I remember she told me, she said, dating is supposed to end. And I remember when she said that, I was like, what? What are you talking about? She said, think about it. It's supposed to end. Because she was talking to me about how she doesn't get people who are in relationships for, like, people who date boyfriend and girlfriend for, like, years on at a time and, like, decades. And she said, I don't get that. She said, because dating is supposed to end. And she explained it to me. She said that you date somebody, what? To figure out he or she is the one, and I want to marry you and spend the rest of my life with you.
Yeah.
Or he or she is not the one, and we break up and we go our separate ways.
Yeah.
And when she said that, I said, okay. It was a good point. It was a good point. I couldn't argue with it. I think she, and it may not apply for all people. Some people may not see it that way, and that's okay. I completely understand that.
No, I understand
but I think it was a good point.
Yeah, I understand the point that she's trying to bring. But I also want to add a twist to that. That it's so important that when you do get married, that you continue to date. Yeah. Because that's what ends up happening, because then you get married and then couples forget to date. So that doesn't even exist anymore. It's like, oh, no, we're married.
Yeah, that's a good point. I
I would add that in addition to being able to remember that, yes, you should be dating in a month. You should be dating at least like twice a month.
Right.
Because you should be going places, going out. Like, don't forget what brought you there.
Right, exactly.
To that moment.
Yeah.
And I've been noticing, that couples now that are in relationships, they end up living together now versus pretty much getting married.
Right.
So give me some thoughts on that.
Yeah. It's a risk, to be honest with you. It's a risk. It's very hard for, the concept. It's funny, I actually listened to something today where somebody talked about, like, should they get married? Should they not get married? And just like that issue specifically. So many people now that just,
absolutely.
is like what people used to say before, like you shack up with one another, essentially when you live, in the same building together.
Right.
I say it's a risk because there are so many different things that happen within a relationship when somebody engages you and says, hey, listen, I want to spend the rest of my life with you.
Right.
And I want to marry you. There are so many different things that have to happen with those individuals in terms of preparation.
Yeah.
Like I said, forgetting about I, me, and I was going to say, yo, I'm thinking about Spanish. My goodness.
Yes. For those that do not know, Bejota, he is full-blown American, right, with Nigerian?
And Bahamian, yep.
And Bahamian.
My grandmother, my mom's side, yeah.
And he speaks Spanish fluently.
Yeah, un poquito.
No mucho. Él habla español muy, muy bueno. Muy bien. Yes.
So, and forgetting about I and me and thinking about us and our, like, there's a process, there's a transition that comes with that. And when I feel like sometimes when people don't do that, there are things that should happen that don't happen. I feel like as a woman, now I'm not a woman, but I would imagine as a girl, a man comes to you and tells you he wants to spend his life with you. I feel like mentally there's a little bit more security with that mentally than there would be if a guy just says, hey, listen, like, let's live together.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because again, let's just say he owns a house and he tells you, I want to marry you. And maybe you're moving into that house and maybe he's, that house now becomes our home, and your name is on it and things of that nature versus where if you're just a girlfriend that's coming to live, well, that's his home and you're just the girl that lives in it.
Right.
That doesn't
but I
belong
think
to
that
you.
the mentality has changed a lot.
Yes.
Because I think that in today's society, it seems like it's okay to just kind of like what you were just saying, like go shack up.
Yeah.
We'll just live together. We'll split bills.
Right.
Like I don't get like the level of, people being comfortable with that, but it just seems like that is like the new thing to do.
Yeah, I think, you just have a lot more people who are also influenced in today's world by what they see on TV, what they see on social media. There's so many examples, like millions of examples where people are demonstrating, I'm a single woman and I'm strong. You have these women out there who also...
I don't need a man.
Yeah, I don't need a man, and they have like 4 and 5 kids from like 3 or 4 different guys, and I don't say that to condemn people, but what I'm trying to say is there is an aura out there that encourages that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then you have the same thing for guys. I can look at it from the reverse way. On the other side, you have there is a push for men to be this strong macho guy, never been in a serious relationship, but I've slept with over 40 girls.
Yeah.
And like there's like a sense of entitlement that comes along with that. And
it's like the numbers.
Exactly.
Like more numbers, the better.
Exactly. And what we don't talk about, what never makes it onto the social medias, the TVs and stuff like that is the damage that happens behind the scenes.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
The person who goes to sleep at night, the woman who's living in the guy's house that feels insecure because I don't even know if he wants to spend the rest of his life. Yeah, we've been dating together for 8 years, but he never talked about he wanted to marry me.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
So you're good enough to date, but you're not good enough to pretty much marry me.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's like, there's a level of, I think, maturity that happens when you marry somebody. Also understanding, again, like I talked about before, nobody's perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, so what does that mean? We're gonna have moments where we butt heads. You say one thing and I say another thing. Okay, so when you're in a marriage, I feel like you're more susceptible, or you have a high possibility of being able to sit down and have a conversation, hopefully, if it's a responsible person, to talk about, okay, how are we going to work out this issue that we're having in this area.
If they're healthy.
Yes. If they're healthy,
Yeah.
I hope so. Like I said, and responsible people, and these are some of the things you should be thinking about as well when you're dating that person, versus where, if you're not married, and we've never really talked about it. It was just, that was just something that never came up.
Right.
Or it's just like, well.
And that's the thing, those like deep conversations that people should be having.
Exactly.
Right. So when we talk about like these modern day Ruth, and even like with men, right? Because one of the things when I thought about, putting this segment together, it was about, like Ruth, when we think about like all the different challenges and stuff that she went through, but through it all, she was faithful. In the midst of everything, like her waiting season and, her husband dying and then going with the mother-in-law. For those that know the story, about Ruth in the Bible, it talks about her and all the different things that she went through, and she was obedient,
right?
But she was also faithful, right? And then I wonder with even modern day people today, is that faithfulness there, that we can actually be able to say, you know what? Through it all, I'm going to be faithful. Through it all, I'm going to get myself together. I'm going to do these things because I'm in this waiting period, but I need to be able to also, jump into this new relationship, but I'm not going to wait until I actually, until I find the person.
Right. Yeah. And I think faithfulness, when we talk about being faithful, what are we saying? Like people who are able to endure and stick to it. It's like a muscle. You have to build it up over time, So how do you build it up? It's you train it as you go through situations in life where you typically should jump off the bridge. No, you stay on.
Yeah.
And you continue to figure out what are we going to do to be able to work through or resolve whatever the situation may be.
Yeah.
And like you said, there's so many people who haven't had that opportunity to strengthen some of those muscles just because they don't talk about these things.
Right.
Those conversations have never occurred.
They don't happen.
So to go back to your original question, I think that the idea of whether you should get married and live together, or whether people who are singles, it gets influenced a lot by just the world, by what people say.
Yeah. So what do you think about that?
Like in terms
as like,
for myself?
Yes, for yourself.
I prefer to get married before I move into the home with somebody. Why?
Okay.
That's what I was raised on. I've never viewed it any other way. I'll put it to you that way. Like in terms of, if I would be dating somebody,
right,
it would be to get to know you with the thought of, hey, do we want to get married? Yeah.
Okay.
Or that's not the case with us.
Yeah.
But the idea of us living together and us not being married, no, that wouldn't happen.
Right.
Yeah. I feel like, and me personally, nobody's ever said this to me. I feel like it's kind of disrespectful to the woman as well, to the lady as well. Right. And I say that for the same reason that I mentioned before. I feel like, if you like this girl and you want to live with her, man, at least have enough courtesy to marry her and let her know, like, listen, like, I want to spend the rest of my life with you.
Yeah.
Because that's really what you're saying, somebody. Let's not isolate the word marry to just think about the beautiful ceremony, the wedding that happens on the day. Let's talk about the verb marry.
Prepare for that wedding.
Exactly.
Yeah, not for marriage.
Exactly. And the verb marry, what does the verb marry mean? Forgetting about the idea of a husband and wife getting together and getting married, the verb marry means to take two things that are separate and make them one.
Yeah.
And the thing is, how many people really go into it with that understanding?
Right.
So I really becoming
that today's
one.
society, I don't think that happens that often. For people really thinking about, okay, well, I'm dating and I'm dating to marry.
Right.
But even with that, right, when you say that, even people get a little bit afraid. Like if you're like, yeah, I am looking to date, but I'm dating because I want to get married.
Right.
Right? Because right away, some people may just run away from that comment alone.
Right. I know guys.
The commitment.
I know a guy, we asked him, he was actually in one of my friend's wedding. We asked him because he was dating this one girl for a little while. We said, yo, so what's up? Are you next? He said, no. Like, and I lie to you not. Like, we literally asked him, like, what's wrong? He said, you don't want to get married? And he literally was just like,
no,
I'm not ready. It's crazy.
Like anxiety.
It's crazy.
Provoking.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. So the wedding, that was like 2.5 years ago. Yeah. He's actually married now.
Oh, is he?
And lives in another state, but with a different girl. It's not the girl who he was with for 10 years. Yeah.
Okay.
So
story for another day.
Yeah, literally. So it was just so funny. But he's a prime example. Like you said, there's so many people who are scared of marriage.
Yes.
And sometimes, again, going back to what I mentioned before, like when you were giving me the example about the girl who maybe everything is good here in this area, has some things here she needs to work on. Let's talk about why. Because again, some people fear marriage. Why? Because maybe they grew up in a home that was broken.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Mom and dad were constantly in and out of different arguments. Or, it could be, maybe it was a person who grew up in a home that was divorced, and maybe things were tough, living on a one family income with 4 and 5 different siblings, not always being able to do what you wanted to do. Right. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes these fears that we have normally come from something else.
Yeah.
You know?
And our focus, I think, has also changed, right? Because years ago, it was more about like the family unit.
Right.
Right. It was like, okay, you go to school, you graduate. After you graduate, you find a husband, you find a wife, and then that's it.
Right.
Right. And then it's like family time.
Mm-hmm.
But nowadays, I think that because there has been such a shift,
Mm-hmm.
you know, everyone is about independence. It's kind of like what you were saying before, that woman power and,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that feminist, like there's just so many different components.
Right. Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think also it's like, okay, I can have my cake and eat it too. So we'll go ahead, I'll meet this person, we'll have sex, I'll see if I like you or not, see if it was good or not.
Mm-hmm.
And then at that point, then I'll determine if I want to see you again.
Right, exactly.
So there has been such a shift, you know, and I think as a Christian, it is hard. As a Christian male, it is hard, right? I mean, of course, I'm not a male, but it is hard, like, to try to find that Ruth that is faithful and that is committed.
Exactly. And on both aspects. It's hard sometimes finding a person, or when you do find a person, or you do have an interest. Let's say I find somebody that's cute. She thinks, oh, you're one of those guys. No. And won't even give me the chance. Why? Because the last 4 to 5 guys that came that said they were good and they were this and they were that. So
they're messing it up for you.
Never lived up to the expectation of what they said. Yeah. And then again, it just makes it that much more harder to try to get through to somebody. Yeah. So there's that aspect as well.
Yes.
You know?
So what would you tell someone as we're, you know, getting ready to wrap up soon? Like, what would you tell someone as far as that is in like their 30s and they're kind of, you know, wanting to settle down and like, what would you say to them?
You know, it was taught like this to me by one person. So they said, think about how if you were to make a triangle with your fingers, so you have your point at the top here, and then you have your 2 corners in your triangle. At the point here at the top is where God is.
Yeah.
And at the point here you are, and here's the other point where your spouse or your future,
that's
you know,
the
Mr. or Mrs.
triangle.
is. And what you should be doing from where you are is pursuing God, pursuing his plan for you, and every aspect of it, socially, spiritually, you know, economically, occupationally, whatever it looks like. And really and truly, your spouse should be doing the same thing. And at some point in that divine walk, you know, that divine plan that he has for you, if you're truly pursuing those things that he's called for you, there's going to come a divine point where you and that person connect.
Okay.
You know, where you and that person encounter one another.
Right.
You know, and the goal and the hope is that we've been doing some of the things that me and you have talked about here today, and that you are ready. That you are prepared, you know, and you're not just waiting to that day to be able to turn
start
it
getting
on.
prepared.
Yeah.
So you should be actually preparing now.
Yeah.
It's like if you're going to be a doctor, you're not going to wait until surgery day to say, okay, now I'm going to be a surgeon.
Right.
The day before that you're going to perform surgery on someone.
Yeah. I mean, because obviously I'm not married, but I would imagine, and just thinking about some other things that I've heard that people talk about, you know, marriage is a long commitment. You know.
Oh yeah, it's a covenant.
Exactly, it's a covenant. You know, and with that, like I said, there's so many changes that happen with the individual.
Absolutely.
From the time that they get married to the time that you know, till as it should be, till death do them apart. So because of that, the preparation is the same way. You know, I think even getting there to even be ready for it. So
absolutely.
Yeah, my word to anybody, like you said, 30 looking for marriage is just pursue what God told you to pursue. You know, and if you're unsure, I would say take time. You know. In prayer, you know, if you have a church home that you go to, maybe connecting with some leaders and just getting more clarity on areas in terms of like your purpose, what he's called you to do, you know, because there's so many people who encounter their significant other, the person they're supposed to be with, you know, when they're pursuing what God has called them to do. And that could be you doing something in your church. It could even be something outside of your church. You know, I tell people all the time, I don't have an issue with dating apps, but I said, like me personally, I've always seen myself meeting that person in person.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Through an
app.
Okay.
But I don't have an issue with them. You know, because
But that's just not for you.
It's just not for me. Like I think there's so many people who would be married today, like people who were born like 60s, 70s, and that be married today if dating apps were that much more popular like how they are now.
Okay.
I believe so, in my personal opinion.
Yeah.
But just to navigate back to the question, I think, you know, when you pursue God, you know, I think you're on the fast track to being able to meet that person who's for you, the person that he's called you to.
Yeah. So BJ, are you waiting well right now?
I believe so, to the best of my capacity. Okay. Am I perfect? Absolutely not.
Okay.
But I'm making changes along the way.
You're trying your best.
I tell people this all the time. I haven't arrived, but I've left.
Yes.
I'm on my way.
Okay. I love it.
Yeah, but I'm telling you, there's no perfection here at all whatsoever.
Yes.
But I thank God that he gave us Jesus. I don't have to be perfect.
Yes.
That's why he's perfect.
Yes.
And he still took his identity and put it on this inside of me. Praise God. Because let me tell you something. Without it, I'd be a mess.
Yes.
But he fixes me.
So we have Bejota here. And Bejota, You're currently not dating.
No, not
Okay,
right
so to the chicas that are out there, if you guys hear this, you want to go ahead and send us a
now.
message.
A resume? So no, I'm playing.
Send your resumes.
Yeah.
Yes, because BJ will be happily available.
Yes.
But yeah, so and you also have a podcast, BJ. So before we go, can you just kind of just tell us a little bit about the podcast before we wrap up?
No problem. So you guys, I like when I came out of college, I really got into the journalism field and sports field. So that's still where my heart is. I'm not currently in that field right now, but that is where my heart is occupationally.
Yeah.
So right now I've taken it upon myself to actually start like my own podcast, my own YouTube channel. So I actually have 2 of them, and that's just because I'm learning the way like the whole algorithms work, and just with some of the recommendations I was given. So I have one that's called Conversations Sin Fronteras. From people that don't speak Spanish, Sin Fronteras means without borders. The purpose of that channel is really just for conversations, kind of somewhat similar to like what me and Zachyra are doing right now, my tia.
Yeah.
Also I want to use that channel for creating content that helps people grow, helps people to be stronger, to be better, to motivate people. That really is the purpose of that channel. So sometimes it may be things where it's just me by myself, sharing information, or it may be like a sit down interview with somebody or something of that nature. So that's really the purpose of that channel. And then I have another channel that's called La Gira Mundial. La Gira Mundial means the world tour. And for that one, that's in relation to some of the other things we talked about earlier, just my love for travel. So that could be anything from culture related. Both of these channels, you may find stuff in Spanish, you may find stuff in English.
Yeah. This is from BJ that says that he only speaks un poquito de español.
Un poquito. Yes. Sí. I also know a little bit of Portuguese. In my opinion, I'm at like maybe 60-65%. My friends tell me I'm like 80. I don't think I'm that good. Yeah. So you may find some stuff in Portuguese as well. Yeah. But those are the two main channels.
Yeah.
Both of them are multidimensional. So multidimensional La Gira Mundial and multidimensional Conversations Sin Fronteras.
Yes, I love that. Oh my goodness, BJ. I definitely appreciate you coming and visiting us, and hopefully we'll be able to bring you back again. His information, we are going to go ahead and put it in also in the notes so you can actually see it if you are interested in following, BJ as well. But thank you so much for coming and for being part of our conversation today.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and hopefully the next time you'll already have your mamacita with you.
And then I can bring her in, and then she can give you guys a real scope about the person I am and tell you from her perspective.
Yes, and you are actually waiting well.
Yes.
Yes, and loving wisely.
Exactly.
Yes, absolutely.
And I appreciate that too. I thank you for having me. Always grateful to be able to come and spend time with you.
Yeah.
And for our listeners, again, nobody, has all the answers. I can tell you I don't have all the answers.
Right.
But I hope that we've given you guys some things that are giving you some food for thought, things that were thought-provoking, and just gives you an opportunity to be better for tomorrow. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, BJ.
No problem.
Yes, and I'm just so grateful that we were able to have this conversation, and hopefully we'll have the mamacita on next time.
Yes,
and she'll be able to tell us. She'll be able to tell us a little bit about that. But that's it for today, guys. This is Soul Conversations with Z, Healing in the Raw. Thank you so much.